Hey guys, welcome to Faz Radio. We have a very interesting show today with some people from a community called the Gathering Games. Is that correct?
Yeah, known as Gathering Gaming. Correct.
Gathering Gaming. It's a community, right? Or is it a platform? Is it going to be more? Let's get right into it.
Yeah, so it's started as a gaming community, just a bunch of friends, and just kind of played together different games, and now it's expanding kind of Web3. And kind of the big thing we're here for today is kind of expanded now into more of a developer community for the Web3.
So what does that mean exactly, a developer community?
JJ, maybe you can speak a little better on that part.
Yeah, kind of just right now. I mean, you guys might have noticed in the Gala Discord, there isn't even like a developer forum section or anything. I mean, there is the aspiring game developers, of course, but I think that's a little bit more niche than what we're talking about here. This is more a place for people who are interested in developing Web3 in the space, and particularly in Gala or Gala Chain, whatever it's going to be called, can kind of unite and kind of figure out what do we need from Gala and what do we have amongst us already for the community in the meantime.
Well, so this is from the gamer's perspective then, right?
I think it's a unique situation in the sense that pretty much anybody who's going to be developing here is also going to be gaming here. So I think you've got kind of like a hybrid approach of like, we all have played some, for whether it's MMOs or FPS or RTS, whatever it might be. We all have some experience in some niche that we like. And I think we're all kind of like, oh, this is an interesting bastion of games and an ecosystem where maybe we could find Web3 titles we like, but there's also no tools to support them that we would be familiar with in the games that we like World of Warcraft. You have such a robust tool set, RuneScape, robust tool set. I mean, pretty much anything, there's some sort of a guide or a wiki. And then on top of that, like rankings and stats and like all these things that support you as a better player, kind of figure out what is the meta. And there just isn't anything like that right now. And that's kind of why us as a community are kind of banding together, is it seems like the onus is on us to, number one, say what we want. And then number two, what do we need to make it happen if it's not already happening? And if it is already happening, maybe just let us know, right? Because that would be exciting for us as a community, right? We'd be super stoked to see that.
So is this going to be just for Gala, or is there going to be other gaming institutions that you're going to try and bring into this? Is it exclusive?
I think in the sake of what we're trying to accomplish right here, this is very Gala-centric. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be, like, for instance, my platform is cross-chain. I'm working with Solana and EVMs and other things. So I think there will be elements that everybody's bringing from a Web3 perspective, whether they're working with other chains or they're chain agnostic or they're just preferring Gala chain. But I think everybody's going to be kind of taking what they've learned from developing a Web3 outside of here and trying to apply it to the Gala ecosystem, because right now you're kind of just guessing. It's like, what's going to be the wallet standard? Is it going to be Web3 injectables, or are they going to do their own things like that? So it's kind of like us as a community figuring out, like, what do we know? What don't we know? What questions do we want answered? What tools can we build? What tools can you give us? And how can we kind of unite as a group instead of it just being individuals asking for things? Because myself and I think others have experienced that as an individual, it's not that Gala isn't excited to work with you. They'll take you on as affiliates. They'll get you whatever you need at that level. But you're not really getting time with the people who are actually putting out the product to solve the things you're trying to solve. It's more like, we'll get to you when we can. And I think that a lot of that could just be circumvented by sharing the information with the community instead of individuals, and then fostering kind of that, like, we all want to help each other ethos instead of it just being like, let me hoard what I have until.
Well, could it be that Gala Games prefers to or gives is their API kind of like secret, that they only give it with partners that they work with? Or is this
That's where it's a little confusing, in the sense that, like, they definitely give it to partners that they work with, but it doesn't seem that it's like, it's not like they won't give you an affiliate agreement or agree to work with you or be excited about your product. It's just like, okay, Gala might be excited, but maybe game media isn't, right? Maybe game media.
Oh, okay.
And so that's where it becomes a little more nuanced, and you're kind of politicking versus it being like, hey, game media, like, Gala's on board with us. We got a bunch of developers here who want to build for you. Why aren't you on board? And that's not anything critical to them. That's just an example.
Yeah. Well, Gala's a publisher. Why would you need to worry about, why would a developer community need to worry about all the individual other partners that work with Gala. That would be insane. That would be maddening.
It's very frustrating in the sense that, like, dude, I've had stuff that I've wanted to put out for over a year now, since before ST went live on Geary Chain, before that was even a thing, and you could transfer assets. And I had
fighter tanks, right?
Like I had people like Nephilim and Sinister, who's the head of guilds and stuff at Gala. Everybody's like, this is great. We can't wait to put this out here, etc. But then it's like the buck just kind of stops there, because it's like, well, now what? You guys are excited, but until game media or the people in charge of Miranda's, etc., are going to start putting out their APIs, you're kind of just like on a hold, right? And it's not that Gala doesn't want to see the stuff built. It just then becomes, like I said, a politicking thing where it's like, how do I get the attention of game media to sign off now? And that's where it then becomes a little bit more like relationships versus it being like sharing of information. It's like, well, I had that relationship, and now I'm gonna, like, that's to their benefit. They have access to things, and they're not. It's not that people aren't trying to share, but then it would be like, well, we gave that to you, but we're not ready for other people to have it yet. And that's where then it kind of comes into, well, why aren't you ready for other people to have it yet too?
Well, Gala is just a publisher, right? I would assume that they're in one sense, all they're really doing is just gathering together different companies that work with, I don't know, the blockchain or Geary or whatever. And they're just publishing it out. It would seem like Gala, in one sense, isn't really ever the person you should be going to. It sounds like they always need to sign off.
That's what I would have thought too. That's why I always thought that there should be a developer section in the Gala Discord with somebody like Jehoshaphat, who's actually building the blockchain tooling, etc., where these transactions are being posted. And they should be able to say, hey, here's where you're going to get the data, here's the channel, etc. But it also seems like there's data specific to these games engines, right? So it's like we can get stuff from the Block Explorer for the ST channel or the Asset channel, but I can't actually access the underlying game engine APIs, which some people do have access to while others don't. And those are things that maybe, for instance, like a Forged in Crypto or MAF, where they want to build specific things. But now as a community, we have to kind of go and reverse engineer the Block Explorer, which Gala is excited about us having access to in the data there, to now serve the needs of something that we could have otherwise just had already access to with an existing API that probably would have been much easier for the community. And
well, it sounds like Gala Games wants to be a B2B kind of solution rather than a B2C kind of solution. That's what I'm hearing.
In that scenario, kind of, yeah. It's kind of like, I mean, that's almost what this has become. Is it's kind of like, hey, put together an org of developers and we'll work with you now, versus you being a consumer, right? So it's an evolving situation. I don't think there's any like Malcolm, like there's nobody trying to do any wrong or anything. It's more just like there's nowhere for anybody who works at somewhere outside of Gala to even know what's being built right now. So they don't even know who they should be giving access to. And then we don't have any way to contact it official.
Was this purportedly part of Gala's vision to make it so that anybody could develop with their platform?
That was my understanding at GV1 after countless discussions with people there, and the understanding of like, well, what's the lending situation going to be? And what about DEXs, and who's going to be building tooling? Is it just going to be Gala certified partners, or is the community going to be involved, et cetera? And my understanding from conversations has been people are going to be able to build what they want to build. Whether or not that necessarily interfaces with the Docker containers that Gala publishes is a different story, though. Because you have to keep in the fact the way that the Hyperledger Fabric here runs, you all have your Docker containers. So you can put out whatever you want potentially on this network, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be running on the CDN that Gala serves, right? It just might be accessible on the chain, that's where you get into like the different workloads and all that stuff that they talk about. Like maybe DreamWorks is doing something over here and Gala's over here. Well, maybe my app lives in there in between, right? And so containerization becomes essential there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to be like signing off or engage with it. It's just you need to be able to post contracts to the Chainco, which is what has pretty much been told we could do. So
is it that the point of this community, the Gathering Gaming, to provide a set of APIs that would do all the heavy lifting to figure out how to do all these things with the blockchain or Geary and make it available to everyone else? So maybe it'd be like the open source SDK that you'd want to get developed with.
Yeah, my hope here is basically take, at a level 1 approach, let's say, just build out some primitive APIs, get some information out there, get some docs out there for people to start building, interacting with the Block Explorer versus, I mean, it's not like it's hard to query the Block Explorer, but it's like if you want to do specific things, you might not even know how to iterate through the data or understand how to work through like the raw block versus the parse block or things like that. So it's like, how can I dumb all that stuff down to get people who aren't comfortable working with blockchain data to begin with to be comfortable building in this ecosystem, right? That's kind of phase one for me. And then phase two is uncover what don't we have now? And what do we need as a result of that we can now solicit from Gala or from the independent publishers, et cetera, hopefully as kind of a unified front where it's like, hey, man, it's not just me who wants this one thing. It's like we've got 20 developers here who are all like, I'd love to be able to just check the wins directly from your guys' SDK. Instead, we have to iterate through the entire block explorer by ID, check every block that you posted in that day, check which ones were Spider Tank games, check which ones you won, and do all that stuff. Like, why do we need to do that? We will do it, but maybe you could help us not have to do that so you could have more developers is kind of the idea.
It makes a lot of sense.
I think that would take a lot of the pressure off of Gala Games so they could focus more on games as well, no?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, just like I'm not a Unity developer like at an expert level or anything, but like I've set up a fair amount of Unity builds where you're interacting with your own Node.js server or a Python build or whatever. And it's like just having a community where people can come in and ask questions of like, how do I even get Block Explorer data into my game right now is not something that is available to Gala. Like, it's just like you could go in there and who do you even talk to? And like, where do you go from there? And hopefully this can be kind of an interim. Let's get these people started and let's kind of really understand how many people do want to build here and what do they need.
So who are you like there's obviously Brandon and Lasagne and you that are doing this. Who else is involved in putting this community together?
I think Forged in Crypto for sure is going to be an influential figure. Timbo Slice, those are just people that from my general, experience at Galaverse, rubbing shoulders, they seem really diehard dedicated to building stuff here. And they definitely have been kind of stifled by not being able to have access. So I think they're going to be huge proponents. And then we've had some really just heavy hitters in the space too, like John T and people like that maybe aren't even developers, but they have the right relationships and the ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, one thing that's interesting about this space is like, you might have the idea, but do you have the assets to actually make it useful, right? Like you might have the perfect lending solution, but do you have the 1,000 tanks to put in it? Or are you relying on the community for that, right?
Right.
And so I think that's where it becomes like a matter of who's got the right ethos, who's trying to put the right thing out there to benefit the community, and how can they synergize with people who don't want to develop but do want to see progress.
Well, that is like perfect with that relationship you have with Timbo and the Moff, right? I mean, that's like ridiculous because those two, with you and them kind of working together like that, you're hitting all the sides. You have your developers, you have your idea people, you have your relationship people, and they're already a huge force with the players and the people who want to be in the gaming side of it.
Yep.
They just want the tools to be able to figure out what tank to use or what tank to buy.
Exactly.
That's like, to me, it seems like a perfect marriage, no?
I think so too. I think it's going to bring a lot of people to the space. I think it will actually blow up individual game titles when it's like a bunch of people are putting out independent tooling. I think the community is going to explode. And I think it will be a huge catalyst for Gala as well.
So are you, I'm sorry, Faz, I'll let you talk. I promise I have one more question. So with what you're putting together, are you looking for developers or are you just looking for ideas?
I mean, if you can do both, even better. But we welcome everybody in both respects. I mean, I think we all have an idea of what would be cool in the space. And I know there's going to be some overlap, and I certainly am here to help people, not to stifle them. Like if I can do anything to push their dream forward and somehow something I build is going to be intrinsic, I'm sure I can work that out with them later. So for me, all ideas, all competition, all community is welcome here. I'd rather have friendly rivals and at least be working with people to do something versus have nobody. So.
And no products, right?
Yeah, exactly. And no voice,
And just to build on top of kind of what JJ said, I think Gathering Gaming for the GDC, we're looking to pretty much have anybody that's interested in developing, anybody has any ideas, kind of anybody that just wants to be a supporter, either through just through their contacts or through their assets to support what we're trying to do as a whole. But we like kind of open anybody to join and see what they have to offer to the community.
Yeah, I'm interested in helping out. I was just talking about that with JJ just before the show. But on a different subject. So I saw a tweet from you guys this morning. This is how I learned about you guys. But I also saw that Bitbender had responded to it, saying that this is exactly the kind of thing that he was looking for. Have you guys talked with him yet about how Gala Games might be interested in helping out with this or assisting?
Yeah, I can take that one. We have. He actually has the invite for this. We were hoping he might be able to join, but with a kid and, full-time job. So hopefully he can join, but like you said, he's very interested in what we're doing. We're planning on having a follow-up after we had our first kind of meeting today, talking through our priorities, what everyone's working on, what we need. And we're hoping to share that with him. And everyone's here to help build what they're doing, and we hope for support in that. So that's, hopefully he will join tonight. I don't know, maybe he's running a little behind, but we definitely are going to have a follow-up, and he is supportive, like you said, of what we're doing, and there's something here.
Do you guys have any, I know that this is brand new, and I just got on the Discord, and I'm not asking for you to speak to other people, but do you guys have any projects or influential developers that are interested in working with you guys?
Myself, I've got Morales in my corner, which I'm super excited about. They're one of the heavy hitters in the Web3 data space. I'm trying to get them in with Lasagne too. I think they're going to be really big. And then outside of that, I've got Rango. I don't know if you guys know who Rango is, the cross-chain bridge. I think they're going to be really big in terms of integrating Gala into these other ecosystems. I think if we can get Morales to start indexing Geary blocks and serving up robust enterprise APIs, I think that would bring in a whole wave of other developers that are using their enterprise software. So I'd be excited about that. But on an individual title level, I think we're all really excited about what everybody's building, and we're all just trying to figure out where's the overlap and how do we team up a little bit more, because there are so many people building so many similar things that it's how do we foster a spirit of collaboration?
How do you make it easier for them?
Yeah.
So it really is you're planning originally just to get an API out there. This is where I'm interested in, because I'm an API developer myself, and I'm interested in helping you guys test what you come out with, and perhaps load test it and figuring out how it would scale up and so on. Because I think you were telling me is people have written code to talk to Geary and stuff like that, but they don't know how it will handle when it's scaled up.
Absolutely. I think that in general, there's a lot of nuances that we don't even know yet about these blocks and the block explorer, the way it's being posted, and what are the rate limiting and all these different types of things that we're still kind of figuring out. But we need to get around that stuff so that we can then serve those in those pieces of data and information without the people who don't have that experience working within those constraints can still use it. Whether it's just querying a legit database that has what they need versus them needing to go and filter through all this stuff, because it's one thing to work through one block, but when you got to work through 100 blocks per person, you're working through 80 people, and that's just per day. The time space complexity gets really high. And I think that's where it's going to be well, how do we dumb this down? Not that people are dumb, but how do we make them not need to worry about this?
Well, Gala Games developed this API or this Geary blockchain, as far as I'm aware, because Ethereum wasn't fast enough to do what they wanted. And other blockchains, sure. I had put Holochain out. I had suggested Holochain way back when, but apparently other blockchains weren't fast enough. They needed some sort of streaming functionality. I remember them saying that they were looking at Flare at one time and looking, I don't know where that's gone, but whatever the case is, I hope that this Geary blockchain that they have is actually fast enough to do the things that they want.
It seems to be, just from my checking out the streaming APIs and trying to index some stuff. I'm pretty impressed. The only thing that I've seen competitive is Near and other Python blockchains in terms of that level of developer friendliness. To be able to develop a contract in JavaScript is a developer's dream, let's be honest. So I'm pretty stoked on that. But I think that whether or not the promise is worth the hype remains to be seen. I think it is, just in my experience of working with other non-EVMs. Love EVMs, but it's they're definitely not great. You're not running World of Warcraft on Ethereum. You know what I'm saying? That's just not happening. You can't do that.
So I think the big part of this too is the coordination that you're putting together. It seems like there's a lot of people that want to do these things just like you want to do, but they're all scattered, like you were talking about. And bringing people together to coordinate it, and that also takes the resource and the load off of Gala, because then they have one place to go where if 5 different people want specific access to specific things, they can drop it in one place, and then you guys can disperse that out and create the projects individually that people want on that side. And I think that is like huge. And you would imagine that Gala would welcome that.
100%, I'm hoping. And one thing on that too, there was a little bit of like contention around this idea of an NDA at first. That was really the whole driving force behind it, is once we start getting delivered information that we don't own, we want to make sure that we're a secure place for Gala and other places to go and give that information, as well as protect people's IP. Nothing needs to be happening with that quite yet, but like for the people who are curious about that, obviously at the point where Gala or game media, other people are releasing APIs and confidence to a community, we just want to make sure that we protect that information. We respect that. So.
Yeah, that's a big part of it as well, because with this space, it's highly, highly competitive. And I could see that definitely being a concern that would need to be addressed right off the bat.
Well, I would think that this community developing APIs could save a lot of time for, I mean, okay, for example, there's a lot of frameworks out there. There are JavaScript frameworks, and I'm a .NET programmer. There's .NET framework out there to do common things that people don't need to roll themselves. And if there is a framework that this gathering gaming can create, I don't know, the GG framework or something, that would be awesome. Because otherwise each individual person wanting to work with the blockchain is going to have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
They still can, but they still can do that, but they could still use some of the APIs that you make that they haven't consumed yet.
Yeah, right now I'm setting up a RESTful. I mean, I have a RESTful server set up, just to be clear, but I'm also setting up an NPM package so people can install those APIs as well into their own apps. So just things like that, whether they want to use a library that we maintain or they just want to go directly to the server. And then hopefully over time, like our resources that we create are less and less required because the Gala ones become more and more robust, or we're able to integrate or whatever, but just something in the meantime to keep people going instead of just giving up.
What are some of the things that you're thinking on the forefront? What are some of the things that you would want to come out of the gate with?
For me, it would just be equal access, number one, on all the ST APIs. I think that if we can get that, I think there's a tremendous amount of creativity amongst all these projects that would just be a huge boon. And I think it would also really just kind of shine a light on the fact that you can develop here. Because right now, I don't even think people know that they could be developing in preparation for chain code and all this stuff. Nor do they know, is it chain? There's just really, very little documentation that anybody could even refer to know they could be doing anything, let alone actually data they could touch.
So that begs the question, right? And it's part of what I'm sure the conversation will look like down the road. But how does that, what you want to come out of the gate with, how does that benefit Gala immediately?
Well, for myself, I'm trying to bring people from other communities, Web 2 games, Valorant, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, RuneScape, just normal games that people play, and help them find Gala Games as well as other things. I think there's a lot of other people that also have their own funnels kind of worked out that are bringing people from other ecosystems here. But at the same time, I mean, let's just be real, the state of the economy, et cetera. Nobody's really excited about buying anything. And myself, I got hundreds of tanks, but going in there, thankfully I got to give a shout out to my man Barrett and other people from NSA. I got people like that who are actually helping me deploy these things, logging into the game and stuff. I think as soon as there's equal access for APIs where people can just have their app and they can deploy to the people they want and they can manage their own guild, whether it's through somebody's app or they want to build their own thing. Just once that creativity comes out of the box, I think a lot of assets are going to come off the shelf that have just been sitting there unused by the community, by power players, because they're just pardon my language, I can't be fucked to go click through 20, 100, 1,000 tanks, whatever it is. It's they want to do it. They bought the assets for the sake of lending in the community. At least I know a lot of people did, because during GV1, that was a huge hype factor, was you're going to be able to lend out your Town Star stuff. You're going to be able to lend out your Spider Tank stuff, this and that.
They even showed screens for that. They even showed screens for doing that.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So that was a huge hype factor. And I think a lot of people really doubled down on that. They're like, well, I believe in this ecosystem. I believe in these games. And I want to help people in foreign countries, third world countries, who the value of this dollar actually has a massive impact. And they put a lot of money into it. Now they're just kind of sidelined instead of actually being able to help those people like they want. And I really do believe as soon as those people can get involved and off the bench, there's going to be a lot more people playing, a lot more people lending, and a lot more good coming out of it. That ultimately will net benefit Gala.
Well, not only that, but I see you guys, as you kind of alluded to right at the beginning there, that you're a giant frickin' beacon, not only for players, but for developers and end users, for any of that kind of stuff that they can plug into. So you're just like this giant red light that's spinning, bringing people to the awareness of Gala Games and of you guys to be able to take that to another level. No?
That's what we're hoping. I mean, with people like you and your help, I mean, we'll be able to get the message out. Unfortunately,
absolutely,
it's hard. You know, it's real hard to get. I mean, this is the closest we've been. We're closer than we ever have been, especially having Bitbender in our corner and people such as yourself. But man, it is an uphill battle for sure.
Well, and there's a lot out there too. I mean, look at the space over the last 9 months, right? Everything you touch is either a rug, a scam, or complete bullshit, right? We have always been supportive of anybody who's true and who's building and who's doing it right. The words doing it right is what matters the most. Yep. And if you make a promise, you fulfill the promise. And don't sell hype, right? Sell results. We want to see it. This is the year of show me for everything. So if you guys can bring that to the table, you can keep your promises, you can show results, you can shine that beacon for people to see and produce something, dude, you're going to go a million miles very quickly in this space.
Man, that'd be fantastic. And I really appreciate that enthusiasm, guys.
Oh, no problem at all.
It's going to be great, especially when we start getting the right people in there. And just to build off kind of what JJ said a little bit, yeah, we're just trying to get those people into the Discord essentially, and just into the community, so we can bring on those new individuals that even aren't even familiar with Web3, but know what they're doing in the development community within gaming and everything else, and kind of just bring something new to the table, something that, you know, we haven't thought of, or something that, you know, would be a good idea.
Also, just one thing on that, I am trying to factor in like a grants portion of this. Like myself, I'm going to contribute a Gala node and some other stuff to this community whenever that becomes useful, whenever you can make requests or RPCs or whatever. But also I'm trying to partner with some people that I know who could help fund some projects as well. Not in like a greedy VC capital type of way, but like, hey, you need something. How can we make that happen? I would like to see this become an incubator of sorts in that regard as well.
Being realistic and upfront about that kind of stuff is a huge, huge help as well. You know, you guys can't work for free for your entire lives, right? And the way that you're doing it, I think, is a fantastic. You're not shilling a token or a node to try and fund something. Although we do have a friend who has a program that can help you raise money. We have one of those. Yeah. It's a space that you have to get into the right way. Yeah. And I'm serious, you'll go super far with that.
Awesome, man. I really hope so. And anybody you can help us to achieve that dream would be fantastic, because I really do want this to be a differentiator. I want it to be a respected and trusted resource. I don't want anybody thinking it's a rug. Like, as far as I know, everybody in this community is down to stay. They're here to stay, and they've been here since I've been here or longer. So there's no like rug pulls to come from these people. I think they'll be here until the chain shuts down, personally.
Yeah, offline, I'll shoot you a note in our group chat. Our friend Jesse Hines, who is opening up a brand new entity called Seed Starter, and he just got licensed with FINRA and SEC to raise money for crypto gaming projects as well as any other project. So he's fully licensed, fully accredited there, and he's just starting. He's building in this space as well. So that would be a fantastic contact for you guys to get some traction in this as well.
Definitely. Thank you for that heads up. That'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. No problem.
I have a question about, you had mentioned donating a Gala node to the community possibly. Are these Gala nodes actually functional in that they can, that you can use them to query things? And can you
can go onto your Gala node and you can check what the workload's doing. Like you can actually go onto the Docker and see what's happening. Like they're doing things and you can see transactions that are posted and such. What I'm saying though is when we get to a point where you can actually use a Gala node, like you could use an RPC node in Ethereum for better latency and stuff like that, I will 100% donate one to make sure that we have the best resources we need as a community. It's just right now you can't, to your point, you can't do anything with them yet. They're just sitting there running the workloads that they're invoking versus our ability to actually interact with those workloads, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier, where it's like, maybe one studio is doing this over here. Maybe Gala is doing this over here. Well, those Docker containers are isolated and we don't have any way to interact with them or post anything to their Hyperledger. So as soon as we get that level of access to the Gala node Docker container, a whole world of possibilities could potentially open up.
So wait, you're kind of, I need the duct tape to wrap around my head here. So you're actually looking to build bridges, so to speak, between what Gala nodes can do besides what Gala wants them to do, yes?
I would like to, yes. I mean, me personally, I containerize all my software. I think that's a great standard. And I would like to see that, since that's something that's supported here, people are running containerized workloads. Like I think that needs to be part of the developer guidelines of something that you could be at least, aware of and know that is an option that, hey, maybe you could run your own workload on your Gala node, right? Right now, you can only run the workloads that are approved by them, Spider Tanks, Last Expedition. Yeah, we got that one running. Things like that where they've actually released it. But that isn't to say that with your own node in the future, you couldn't run your own workloads. And I think that could be a very interesting thing as an actual gaming platform.
That would be interesting because that, I believe, was part of their promise.
Yep.
Was that these nodes could run games that even were not developed anymore.
Exactly.
Like Gala Games could drop them at a certain point, and then you might want to still be able to run them on yours.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of older games resurrected that way, being maintained by communities now instead of by individual companies. So it would seem to be within Gala's original vision.
I think so. I mean, they've obviously got a lot they can do. I mean, I'm very impressed with, in terms of, from my experience working with containerized software, I gotta tip my hat to them. It is very impressive to have this thing running these workloads and then be independent and all of the ports. Like it is a legit thing. I just can't yet peel back the layer to say, how exciting is it? I just know it's exciting.
Right. That's where you're hoping to get. And yep. I have a feeling, though, that's going to probably take some time.
Definitely. I think that's a year or 2 years out at earliest.
And people don't like slow in the crypto space, if you haven't noticed, right? And that's kind of why I was asking what you would start out with and how you would integrate things. And what is that ultimate vision that you're a hub, let's say 2-3 years down the road, to where people can plug in and plug out at the same time to whatever's on that platform?
Yeah, ultimately become an accelerator for people's independent projects and help them get their projects in a state on chain where they can all interact with each other. Would be great.
Whoa, that's really big. That's a big vision to have, because right now everything, like you were saying, is a containerized mess. And when you build a network like that, like Gala has built with their nodes and with implementing Gala Chain, I think this is the vision of where people actually wanted to go when this whole thing started. Do you think, though, that it is still a little soon, or no? Is it too much hype yet?
You got to start
I think it's
somewhere.
too soon for that quite yet, but I think fundamentally they're building towards it. I mean, I would like to see it get to a point where nodes can not only vote on node-related things, but they can also vote on workloads, and those workloads can get added as, supported workloads and all that stuff. But I think that's kind of, 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100 not necessarily on Gala either. I think it's going to be on Gala to put out an open source SDK that allows you to publish your own containers. And then from there, I think it's going to be up to somebody else to create a container that allows for governance voting of other containers, and then sets a framework and standards around that. And then from there, people operate their nodes independently, and they vote on those containers amongst themselves as people who want to run them. And then those become community resources. But I don't really see Gala in that picture.
That sounds very mature. That sounds like a very mature part of Gala's vision, which I don't think that they're anywhere close to that at the moment.
Exactly.
So that is a great place, because I am like I'm real big on the decentralized part of crypto, and Faz and I have argued on this show over the last few years dozens of times about that, and I've called Gala out a few times, and it's like, look, you keep saying you want to be decentralized, but every move you make seems to be more and more centralized rather than decentralized. So from what I'm hearing, you are a conduit to making what they say is their vision of true decentralization a reality. Yes?
Definitely. And also, I mean, since we're not officially like a part of the organization, I mean, there's less risk, I'd like to say. I mean, it's like, give us the tools we need to build and, teach us to fish, so to speak, but like, don't catch our food for us. Like,
absolutely.
Don't take responsibility for those things. Just enable us a little bit, I think, is what we're looking for. And I think if they do that, I think the results will be incredible of what the community could do.
Why do I get the feeling that Gala Games hasn't said very much, because they're still determining their own direction, and while they're determining their direction, they're going to have a hard time transmitting that to everybody else. So what would that mean then if you develop an API with some basic stuff going on, and then all of a sudden Gala does a complete 180 on some of their direction, which is why they didn't develop an API for everybody at first? What would you do then?
Well, I would reassess what data we have. I mean, let's say that conceptually it was like a butting of heads, and they're like, we don't want you to do that. Well, I think that's where it's going to get interesting, in the sense that it depends on where the chain's at that point. Because if it's still the way it is now, then, I mean, let's be real, they're gonna shut me down, and they have every right to, with the way that this structure is. Not necessarily right, I should say. I mean, they do. It's their platform, of course. I defer that, but more so like in terms of governance authority, when you look at actual numbers on a node vote, they're gonna dominate right now, right? And I think that until we get to a point where that's not so much the case, then I just don't really see anything that we could do in response if they do a 180. Because they're just going to like, if they decide they want to totally change the network, they're just going to totally change the network, and then we just got to adapt. Doesn't mean that we couldn't adapt, but hopefully it wouldn't be in a detrimental way where it like...
Surprise!
Hopefully they'd be aware enough about the community to at least telegraph those moves in advance.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that's where the community part comes in, is if you can develop a community of those developers and of those users and show that use case, I think they would have a hard time telling you no at that point, because it really would put you in a pivotal position. They've promised that anybody who wants to build on Gala Chain can build on Gala Chain. So let's see it. You know what I mean? Let's see what you guys can do.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're talking about actually today. Is, if we get those key personnel and those people that have an actual interest into Gala and actually have a voice, and we have the numbers, then it would be harder for them to do that entire 360 and change what they're trying to do if we've already invested time and effort and possibly money into it.
And even beyond that, to your point about decentralization, nobody's going to be excited to use a chain that's monopolized. So if only one studio or one publisher is able to put out the DEX in the NFT marketplace and the killer dApps and their token, it's like, well, what's left for everybody else? Why would they even develop there? And that's really what I'm also concerned about, is I see us going in a direction where only certain people have access to build certain things. And it's not that they're bad people, and I'm not in any way implying that. I just think that's bad for the community.
It is. It absolutely is. And giving people choice is, what the heart of crypto and blockchain really is making it permissionless. You can do what you want to do. If people don't want to participate in it, they don't have to. Yeah. They can go right around your container to the next container that might have something there. Exactly. But having that all laid out like that, I think is beautiful. And I really, really hope that you guys can get the traction on this to put these thoughts and these ambitions to some good use. You're going to need some help, though. There's no doubt about that. So if there's developers that are listening out there and people who can contribute to this, I've linked down below their Discord. You can join the Discord. You can become a member of this community and start contributing. For people who might have ideas that could spark a little something, or maybe has a connection within Gala or some of these other areas that can help them develop, I encourage you to join, go over there, talk to JJ, talk to Brandon, and make this reality into something that we can all benefit from.
Please do, guys. We'd love to have you. I mean, everyone's welcome, for real. It's a growing club, and we want to get as big as possible, because, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that just aren't talking to each other right now, and it's really important.
This is not just developers. I mean, you
exactly
want, like, people to help with supporting and marketing and stuff like that too, right?
Dude, I want people like who are just telling me what's wrong. Like, give me the troubleshooting.
Yeah.
Like, what issues are you having with the experience as a user experience that we can solve as developers, whether it's data driven, UX, or whatever? Because like, we can only speak to our own pain points that we're trying to solve. But if you're like, it could be the most trivial thing to you, but man, it might be the most influential thing ever. So please don't be quiet about it.
Yeah. And sometimes, it's not even like, the developers don't even sometimes play the game. They just build the game. And it's the gamers that'll know exactly what they need in the game that'll, improve as a community. So even if you're a gamer, come in, you can just sit in there, hang out, game, or you can come in there and help, give us ideas, give us what you guys think could, help the community as a whole.
Very good idea. I've dominated most of this conversation. I apologize, Faz. I'm just pretty excited about what I'm hearing. These are things that I've complained about on our show for years, is that we don't have that integration towards getting things decentralized. And this platform sounds like it's one that's really like laser focused on making the things happen, just like the MOF was for so long. And they finally got some traction, and putting all these people together, I think, is one of the best ideas I've heard in a very, very long time.
Well, what I'm seeing going on with this group in particular is they're starting to fill the gap. They're starting to fill the hole that Gala is leaving wide open. Gala is putting together something that's really interesting, and as you would say, they're dropping the ball. Well, the way that I would put it is, for whatever reason, they're not they're not keeping up with the areas that they should. Other people are going to do it for them, and other people are going to start using these nodes for reasons of their own. And Gala's going to have to make a decision. Are they going to stick with their original vision, which is this is going to be, nodes for everybody to use, or are they going to be, a gatekeeper for everything that's being used here? And I think something like this coming about is going to show the proof in the pudding where they really stand. And this is why I was hoping to have Bitbender on, because on Twitter he was saying he was really excited about something like this, which means to me that Gala really wants the community involved to do this kind of stuff. Great. How is Gala going to enable this stuff to happen? How are they going to help? Or even if they just take their hands off and just let these guys run with it, okay, great. They're not going to try and shut it down or get in the way. They would support it by just keeping things consistent. Yeah. That's what I'm hoping to see out of this. I want to see Gala really succeed, and there's a lot of other gaming companies out there like Electronic Arts and stuff like that are dominating the space. As soon as they go blockchain, they're going to come, hard and heavy.
Yeah.
And Gala Games is missing an opportunity if they don't vocally support groups like this.
We need to create a moat, basically. And to your point of dropping the ball, I wouldn't necessarily say it's dropping the ball, but it's holding the ball. And I would like to see the ball be passed.
They're holding the ball. They're not doing anything with it.
That's what I'm saying. If nothing's going to happen,
they don't have to hold it right now.
Exactly. Let us do something with it in the meantime, and we'll give it right back to you, you know?
Yeah, they can certainly lead. So every time I think of Gala Games, integrating new games in, I keep thinking of Microsoft and how Microsoft has Windows, but they also put out, their own frameworks and APIs to program with their stuff. And a lot of the reason behind Microsoft's success in the developer community, in my opinion, is their immense amount of documentation and working with developers. This is what I see missing with Gala Games. And now we have a company, or not a company, or a community here that wants to do that says, okay, if you're not going to do it, we're going to do it. It's going to cost Gala Games nothing to allow these people in and start playing with the API, testing the API, using the API, giving you feedback on the API from real world applications.
And various ones, different use cases, all trying to use the same data,
Yeah.
Different frequencies, different, There's a lot of nuance there that it might work for somebody, but somebody else might need to make that same request 1,000 times. So now how do you bulkify it, right? And we got to figure out.
Okay, in that case, when you're developing an API, it's like, what's the API optimized for? Well, the underlying libraries can't do that yet, but we've done something in the API to cache this and speed it up. And so until this functionality comes out, the API can kind of cover the this functionality.
And that's where we come in. Exactly that is, we'll do what we got to do, that heavy lifting to transform this data as much as we can to massage it to what you guys need, but also let us know what you need so we can kind of figure out where are the limitations of what we do have. And then at that point, I think it is very fair for us to reapproach Gala or these independent publishers and be like, look, we've done everything we can as a community with what you've given us, but we have a lot of people who do need this specific thing. Can you help us with it now?
So yeah, it's a great conduit for Gala Games to find out where to move next, because they certainly need to understand what their audience needs. And I'm not sure if, again, I see them right now as doing a B2B strategy and not a B2C strategy. Yeah. And if they had, so doing this would actually kind of fill the gap to where they can do a B2B strategy, but with a community instead of just everybody.
We're just an org that you're releasing the docs to, and we'll take it to the individuals from there. But you still get to go through one mediary, which is a good win. And
then you can call this the Gathering Games SDK, and it's right now it's the only SDK out there until Gala Games comes out with their own.
Exactly.
So that's my 2 cents on the thing. That's why I'm interested and why I'm planning to get involved with this. It's just to test some of this stuff, come up with some documentation, some easy documentation for people to use whatever APIs are created.
Dude, I'm sure once you look at these blocks, you're just going to be laying in bed and you're going to be like, well, what if I tried doing this with that data, right? I mean, those are the types of things we need to have happen where people are just familiar with the data and they're like, well, why don't we store it this way? Why don't we iterate it through here? Can we do it by user, but also by channel? Like, you can't even do that via the Block Explorer right now. Like, just these little things that you want to do or you need to do, they're just pains in the ass right now. And I think that if we can get as many of those things in people's hands, I think a lot more people will be developing.
There's a question here. What's the question? How will the ecosystem of Gala, how will the ecosystem of Gala function with all the founders nodes in the hands of the community? Well, I think it would be functioning as advertised.
That's the show me part of 2023.
I mean, their whole idea is everybody has nodes and the nodes can vote on the future and stuff like that. But what seems to be happening right now is Gala is holding the ball, as it were, and they're kind of spearheading everything and running everything because I think they want to prime the pump, so to speak, to get some things going first. I get that. I think everybody else is kind of champing at the bit, waiting for when they can get involved with Gala's stuff. It's okay. When can we start doing this? But I don't think that vision has been detailed out yet. Like, we're planning for the community to come in at this point, or were they, or are they always going to be a gatekeeper? That's what I think we really need to find out.
Good point. So thanks for the question, Zorro. We've got approximately 10 minutes left. We don't want to hog everybody's whole evening from them. So, gentlemen, Brandon and JJ and Lasagne, while the users come up with any questions for the end of the show that they might want to ask you, what are some thoughts you want to leave with the people who've spent an hour with us here tonight?
Number one, thanks a lot, guys. I mean, hopefully this really does become what we all want it to. I think we're all on the same page of where we think this community could go. And, I think there's a lot of potential there, but it is obviously going to take the whole community to get there. We can all build our own little things, but unless you guys are all excited to use them and you're all pushing for Gala to take it seriously, we're not going to get anywhere. So we really, really do need your guys' help.
Yeah, I see people like the Moth and Rostakip and others building things on this. It would be nice to see all those people work together and still be able to sell what they do on their own.
Yep.
This would be an in-between state that would speed everything up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for the friendly rivalries. I don't think that the ecosystem isn't big enough for there to be multiple dexes, multiple NFT marketplaces, multiple things, right? And I think that competition is just going to drive better quality of products. And ultimately, us all working together, it's I know me personally, I am motivated by the fact Rostakip's also building stuff, right? That keeps me going. I love that. Keep that energy coming because if it was just me sitting here campaigning for myself, for my access, that would be pretty depressing. So,
well, look, another thing that really stands out to me about this is the exposure and the risk to Gala, like you mentioned a little bit earlier. Right, they might have regulatory issues if they were to issue their own decks, right? They'd have to jump through hoops. They'd have to do all this. If independent developers put this onto the network in a decentralized fashion, that's a huge step in a direction that they don't have to worry about, Exactly. And I think that would be hugely attractive to them.
And obviously, I can't speak to the framework of how Gala operates or anything legally, but my perception would be, as somebody who's familiar with business, if you want to do that, and I don't have to be liable for you, but it's to my benefit,
right? I mean, really, because that is what this space is designed to do.
Yep.
And risk aside, I do believe Gala wants to accomplish a lot of different things. They just can't maybe figure out how to do it themselves without tying knots in their own plan, so to speak. So especially this gives them the opportunity to they can even tell you, hey, these are the things that people have asked for the most. Is this something you can put forward while we focus on X, Y, and Z over here? And then potentially plug into it later at some other point in time.
Exactly. And if you want to take it a step further, and maybe Gala at some point in the future can help with grants for other people's projects or resources at that level, that'd be even better. But in the meantime, just letting people build would be really, really nice.
Yeah.
Good.
We should end it on that. Let people build, man. People want to build. Help us. Help you. Help us. Help us help you.
And grab that beacon that they're shining, run with it, join it, be a part of it, participate, and share it with everybody that you know. Mr. Faz, JJ, Brandon, Lasagne, thank you so much for spending some time with us, especially on kind of short notice tonight. This was a fantastic show. This is one of my favorite ones that we've done. You guys have the passion, the excitement, and the skills to actually make something happen. I'm really excited to be a part of this as well.
Thank you guys so much, man. We
thank you for having us on. Appreciate it.
Keep you in the loop.
And we'd like to check back too. Oh, sorry, Brandon. Go ahead.
No, I appreciate you guys having us on.
Exactly. Yeah, and we'd love to come back, talk about our progress. We're also actually having an event in Atlanta. If anyone follows Las Vegas Lance, we'd love to have you. It's so we're getting everyone together. We're trying to create our own Galaverse in each region.
Oh.
We're having we're trying to get some of our Galaverse artists over. There are talks of quite a few coming. We will see who confirms. But basically, if anyone was at the Snoop event, which I know few people were at, we're trying to recreate that. We're going to have an event on Friday and Saturday, the 23rd and 24th, where we're going to get the community together. We're going to talk about, what we're doing, and, here at the GDC, but also what Lance is doing. And so it's all around supporting artists, the games, and everything around Web3. So just wanted to shout that out. If anyone's interested, we'd love to have you come out. We're going to be buying some food for everyone. We're hoping to have a couple artists actually play some music, and we're going to be talking about what we're doing in Web3.
We have a link for something like this? Is this
Yeah, I was going to say, Lasagne, either DM me or Faz with all the information and the dates and times, and we'll get an announcement out on that for you.
We'll put it with this video when it comes.
Yeah, we'll absolutely get that to you. I think JJ will be in town. I think we're going to have at least 10 plus communities, probably at least 25 to 30 people, and we're going to be buying some food for everyone. We got the best pizza in Atlanta. So yeah, well, I'm telling you, it's going to be fun, and hopefully some good live music. And we're still waiting to confirm everything. Well, we have the venue and everything confirmed, but around the music, we're hoping to have some local artists and actually some from out of town too. So look for some announcements. You can tune into my Discord. To the Discord. We'll have the link in there, and I'll make sure to post all the updates there.
It looks like a couple of our listeners are already planning on going. We got CryptoView El Zorro, Mr. Zorro, and Lava are on the way. Lava's doing something. I saw something that Lava's put together. Is that what this is?
This is it.
Nice. Okay, I didn't associate the two.
I thought you said lasagna. I'm not sure. I think it might be the same thing now, since Lava is going, but
Lava Crypto.
Right. I was wondering. I saw something about that. If it's the same thing, that's awesome. Let's get the messages coordinated and put out so that everybody knows about it. I hate to, when I find out something, 15 minutes after it's over, it drives me absolutely crazy. So let's get in front of this the best we can. Cool.
All right.
Awesome,
is that it?
I think that's it.
Well, let's get out of here. Thank you guys very much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you very soon.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
We'll catch you soon, and we will see everybody else next Thursday and or Friday for Faz Radio. Peace out.